Good morning. This morning I've been thinking and praying about where to kind of take the direction as over the last few weeks we've been studying the theme Authentic Faith. Our series on Sundays and theme for the year is The Authentic Life. And so as we've kind of tied up that series on Authentic Faith, we are going to kind of shift gears and go a little bit of a different direction this morning. But I find it interesting and oftentimes surprising, which I guess I shouldn't, that when we think something should go the way that we think it should go, and God oftentimes will meet us in a different way. And sometimes God will take what we formulate in our mind as a perfect script and just completely flip it upside down. And I'm sure you might be able to think of a time in your life where you were praying for something or believing for something or searching for something, and God provided that in a completely different way than the way that you thought it should be or the way that you thought it should go. Sometimes God will flip the script in our lives. And I guess that shouldn't be that surprising because just look at the cross. When his people were searching for a Messiah, for a Savior, for someone that would overthrow the rule and come as a warrior king, they were given someone that would ultimately die and suffer a painful death. But it really was to meet exactly what they had need of. They needed to be saved not just physically, but spiritually and for eternal life. And so God will do that in our lives. He'll take what we work out as the perfect idea or the perfect script, and sometimes he'll do things completely different. You may ask God to show up in some fashion because we think we know what should really happen. Sometimes I do that, even when I pray. I pray God specifically for him to do a specific thing, instead of being open for it to working out some other way or some different way. And maybe that's just human nature for us wanting to do it our way or wanting it to work out our way or for what we can see. Or maybe there's some influence culturally of us just, getting out there and doing it ourselves. And I'm 100% for, and I believe God wants us to strive for excellence and give our best and put everything that we can. But sometimes God will want to work another way, provide another way, and do something a little different. So as I mentioned this morning, we're going to take this authentic life and we're going to go a little different way. We're going to go on another little detour. And maybe I'm just the detour guy because it just seems like every time I'm going to take things on a little detour. But over the next 2 Sundays, we're going to look at what I call authentic worship. And today we're going to look into the full context of John chapter 4, and some may be familiar with the passage in John chapter 4, and there's a section of scripture there that's one of the most common quoted scriptures when you're teaching on worship or looking at the concept of worship. Today we're just going to unpack the full context. I'm a firm believer, and I appreciate that context brings clarity to our lives. And so if we can see everything that's going on around the scripture, what's happening, when it's said, and why it's said, and who it's said to, all of that context can really set us up to understand the principle in fullness. And so today we're going to take John chapter 4, we're going to unpack a bit in detail, and then next week we'll take the concept of worship and get a little bit more practical into those steps. If I ask around the room and ask, what is worship? Many people would have a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts. And I'm sure that each of us have our own thoughts and ideas on what worship really is. There's many books and teachings and things out there. There's even many things that we label in our church's worship. We call this our worship service. We refer to the song set as time of worship, an opportunity to worship. We even label other things in church that have the word worship, and so it's got all these tags, it's associated with all these things, and there's all these books and teachings and all this information surrounding the concept of worship. But what really is worship? I believe God really kind of flips the script on what true, authentic worship is. So let's go on that detour. We're going to take the detour to Samaria. John chapter 4, I'm going to start in verse 3. I'm going to read all the way through 30, but as we go through, I'm going to break it up and interject some commentary here and there and kind of talk through what I see happening as it's unfolding before us. And hopefully that will keep us focused on the direction in which we're going. So John chapter 4, verse 3, let's pick up there. He, referring to Jesus, left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being weary from his journey, sat thus by the well, and it was the 6th hour. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The woman of Samaria said to him, let me just pull back to verse 7. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away to the city to buy food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Let's pause there. Jesus is on his way again to Galilee. We see that he's taking a journey that he's taken before. But it suggests to us that this time that he needs to pass through Samaria. I find it interesting here that no one questions the route that Jesus is taking. There's other routes to go from Judea to Galilee, but Jesus says he needs to go through Samaria. Now that's interesting because as you see stated here from the woman, that Jews and Samaritans don't get along. There's conflict there. In fact, most Jews avoid Samaria altogether. They'll take every other way in which they will go, even if it's longer, so that they don't have to go through Samaria. Jews and Samaritans fight over cultural issues and religious issues. Jews even think that they're unclean, and there's all this conflict back and forth, and there's an avoidance there. So why would Jesus need to go through Samaria if Jews don't go there? But Jesus flips the script, and he not only goes to Samaria, but he starts talking to a Samaritan. They don't have any association. And not just any Samaritan, but a Samaritan woman. And culturally in that day, there's even a whole other layer of issue with that. And so we see here that Jesus makes a conscious decision. And by now his disciples understand that everything Jesus does, he does with a purpose. So they don't question him. But he goes to Samaria and speaks to a Samaritan woman. Also notice here that Jesus is tired. It says he's weary from travel. I don't know if you've ever traveled long distances and you get pretty tired. But back in that day, they didn't just hop in their SUV and traverse the countryside. He's walking on foot. I don't know about you, but 10,000 steps in a day, 20,000 steps in a day, doing something for a long period of time, you get a little bit tired, maybe a little bit thirsty, and a little bit hungry. So Jesus takes a rest. You can see his physical weariness here. He takes a rest, hungry, and he asks for water because he's thirsty. So the disciples go off to Mickey D's while Jesus is sitting at the well, taking a rest. And this woman walks up. Now, it suggests here that it's the 6th hour. You may not think about this, but generally in that day, people would come to the well early as possible in the day. You don't come to the well in the middle of the hottest part of the day. You come early. You get the water when it's cold. You get the water early. You get there when the crowds are there because, there's a limited supply of what is drawn up from that day. And so we see here that the woman chooses to go in the middle of the day. It implies to us that she's avoiding the crowds, that she's trying to just slip in, get her water, and go home. So here's this woman, a little bit avoiding the crowds, avoiding people, walking to the well, trying to get in, get her water, get out, go on her way, and there's this dude at the well. Oh, great. Not only is it a dude at the well, it's a Jew at the well. Someone that there's already conflict immediately when she walks up. And then he starts talking to her. Oh, man. It's just getting more and more and more uncomfortable. And we see here that Jesus asks her for a drink. And what's her response? You talking to me? You can't be talking to me. Jews and Samaritans, they don't talk. We don't talk. We can't interact here. How is it that you would ask me for a drink? I think you see here that the woman uses culture as a defense mechanism. She uses culture as a defense mechanism. She uses it as a way to cut the conversation short. I don't know about you, but maybe once or twice in my life I've been in a little bit of a hurry. Ran into somebody, whether I knew them or not, or just someone wanted to talk, or someone was being friendly or nice. And how many know when you're in a hurry and you got to find a way to cut the conversation short so you can get on your way and go about your business? Okay, man. I know you're all more spiritual than me. And so as in those moments where you're trying to hurry, you got something to do and you're just trying to get on, or you're just focused on something and you're not wanting a distraction, it gets a bit uncomfortable when clock's ticking. So what do? You steer things, or you start to show visually that, okay, good. And you start to separate yourself from the conversation. And I believe that's what the woman does here. Oh, but you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan, so we shouldn't talk. So I'm just going to get my water and be on my way. I submit to you this morning that the purpose of God supersedes all cultural norms. And we can't let culture be a barrier to our worship. We can't let culture be an excuse for us drawing near to God, hiding behind what the world says. Oh, but, singing songs isn't my thing. Lifting my hands is a little bit strange, and, that speaking in tongues thing, that whole thing creeps me out. I don't understand it. Or this I was raised this way, and we don't do that, and we're not open to that, and we get influenced by the culture around us. And culture itself isn't inherently bad, but it's flawed. We all have our cultures. We all have influences from our upbringings and from life around us and the environment in which we live in. But we have to understand the purpose, the heart, and the Word of God so that we can know what aspects of culture we should hold on to and what aspects need to be left behind. Which ones are binding us and which ones are good. I believe that God understands that. God understands that. He understands our human need for routine. Everybody loves a good routine. I love me a good routine. I like waking up at the same time every day, knowing what to expect, knowing certain things are taking place at certain moments. I love me some traditions. I love me some Thanksgiving, let me tell you. Christmas, wonderful. But those things, those traditions, those routines, the purpose behind them is what's really important. We have to understand that culture cannot be a barrier to our worship. Let's pick up verse 4 there. Or verse 10. Jesus answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." Wait, what? I know it's only one verse. I can't help myself. What? Give me a drink so that you could ask me for living water? There's a little bit of... Who's thirsty here? Is he thirsty? Is she thirsty? He's asking her for water so that she could get... He asks for water so that she could get living water. See this? He asks her so that she could get. He asks her so that she could receive. Jesus flips the script. Give me a drink. He asks so that she can. He asks so that she can be open and receive living water, something that is beyond her physical thirst. But notice that God asks so that we can receive. God doesn't command us to worship, hasn't created us to worship just so He can get. He deserves it. But it's so we can see, so we can have the fullness of God in our lives. God doesn't give us commandments because He can, so that we can see freedom, so that we can be led, so that we can be guided, so that we can be directed. He asks so that we receive. Jesus knew that she was thirsty for something more than just physical water. That she's longing for intimacy. That she's desperate for a relationship that only God Himself can fulfill and satisfy. Notice He doesn't just say, if you knew who you were talking to. He does say that, but He also says, if you knew the gift of God. The gift of God. If you knew who was talking to you and the gift that you can receive, you would have asked. Because the Son of Man didn't come to serve, but to be served, but to serve. He came not to get from us, but He came to give to us. And in order to receive from God, how many know we have to be in that position? And He asks us to do things so that we can be in the right position. He makes it a point, and it's His purpose that He will meet us in our point of need. And He may ask us for something, but not so that He can be served, but that He can give the gift of God. God asks us not because He needs, but because we need. And what does Jesus give her? Jesus gives her a revelation of who He is and the gift of eternal life. The teaching method is a little bit interesting, but many of Jesus' teaching methods are a little bit interesting. I think I would be a little bit confused if I was asked to give a drink and then I was told, well, you should have asked. But how many know this gets her attention? And it stirs on the conversation. And ultimately it breaks down that defense barrier of that culture issue that she liked to throw up in His face. So let's pick up verse 11. That was probably a little bit much for one verse. The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with. The well is deep. Where then do you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered to her, "Whoever drinks of this water will never thirst again. But whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water I shall give them will never thirst. But the water I shall give him will become in him a fountain of well springing up unto everlasting life." You see here that Jesus is trying to give her a revelation that her need is not just a physical need. It's a spiritual need. That what she has thirst of, that what she is seeking is something more than just what can be pulled out of this physical well. She just can't see beyond what's right in front of her. Then we see her bring up something else. She says to him, "Are you greater than our father Jacob?" I find this interesting because if you understand the context of the Jews and the Samaritans and what they share an understanding of the Pentateuch, the first books of the Bible. They share an understanding and appreciation for that. And so she knows at least where this well came from, the context of where it came from, and understands as a Samaritan the culture surrounding that religion. And she brings up the religion issue. Just like the culture issue, she brings this up as a barrier to the conversation. I submit to you this morning that knowing God without intimacy can be a barrier to our lives. When we know about God and we understand principles that are in the Bible, or we go to church, or we go through the motions of religion, but we don't have intimacy with God, that can be a barrier. Religion can be a barrier. If religion is man's attempt at righteousness, without Jesus, it falls short. Without intimate relationship with God, it can even hinder us. In Jesus' day, he respected the temple. He practiced the Passover. We see examples where he had respect for the religious traditions of that day. But he also understood that there was more than just the tradition to be fulfilled. That he had more. That he had something that was alive. Something that could transform us. More than just a tradition. More than just something. Now, religion, just like culture, is not inherently wrong. It's good to go to church. It's good to sing worship songs. It's good to connect with believers. The Bible instructs us to do so. But the point isn't so that we just check them off our list. We don't thirst for religion itself. We have a thirst that's deeper. And God understands that. God wants us to keep focused on the intent of the law, intent of the tradition, intent of the religion, intent of the practice, so that we can stay focused on Him and not the religion itself. Because ultimately then the religion becomes the God. The practice becomes our worship. But true worship goes beyond the religion issue. Now everybody's thirsty for something. Everybody's thirsty for something. Some are thirsty for that culture, seeking approval of others, seeking to fit in, seeking to find those things. Some even find they're thirsty for religion. That they're chasing after the feeling of being holy, the feeling of being right, the feeling of being in good standing. Some are thirsty for relationships and trying to find satisfaction from others and from community and from all these things. Some are finding that they're thirsty for success or money or ambition, and these things all in their place are not inherently wrong. But if they become the focus and they become what we are thirsting for, it falls short. This morning, I submit to you that where you go for satisfaction will dictate whether your soul really gets satisfied. Where you go, what well you go to, and what you draw from will determine whether you really get satisfied or not. How many times did this lady go to the well? We don't know, you don't know, but I guarantee you she went there a lot because that was the well. That was the well in town. She went there over and over and over and over again. And what do we do in our lives? We strive over and over and over again, and we search for this and that, and we think we know we should do this, and we think we should get this, and if I just get this promotion, I'll be happy. If I just get this thing, I'll be happy. If I just get this, and we strive, and we go, and we draw, and we draw, and we run dry. But if we draw from the well of living water, we'll never thirst again. So where are you looking for satisfaction? What well are you drawing from to quench your thirst? She didn't understand that he was trying to give her something different. She was looking for physical water, and Jesus was trying to give her something different, that she wouldn't be dependent on this world anymore. But it would be something that would change her and come up from the inside. And she's just concerned that he doesn't have a bucket. You don't have anything to draw the water from. How would you draw the water? But what she doesn't understand is that she's the bucket. Jesus is the living water, and he's trying to pour into her. He's trying to get her to see that she can be filled, and an inner fountain can be springing up to life inside of her, so that she doesn't have to keep coming back to the same places over and over and over again. Let's pick up in verse 15 here. The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband, and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, you well said, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you are with now is not your husband. In that you have spoken truly." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship." Jesus has her attention now. He's got her attention. She's like, "All right, give me this living water. It sounds pretty interesting." And as soon as she asked for that, Jesus has to address something. Jesus has to address the sin issue in her life. Because just like the religion barrier, and just like the culture barrier, all these things, like sin, lead to shame. And Jesus doesn't condemn her for her sin and pull out stones. And he doesn't give a 4-point sermon on how many times you're allowed to get a divorce and how many times you're allowed to remarry and give all these practical things. He doesn't condemn her in that moment. But he shows her that she still needs to address the sin in her life. And I believe that Jesus is teaching us that we need to address the sin in our life if we're going to have true worship. We have to remove the shame and the sin in our life that separates us from God so that we can have true intimacy with Him. Jesus wants her to see that she can truly find satisfaction and intimacy with God. She resorts back to the religious issues again. She's like, hey, you're a prophet. And, Jews, they worship in Jerusalem, and we worship on this mountain, and there's this disconnect, so I guess we really can't proceed with this conversation anymore. But Jesus breaks down this defense mechanism again. She's just uncomfortable. And honestly, we'd all be uncomfortable if someone that we just met just called out our sin. I'm uncomfortable calling out my own sin, let alone some random person that you just met at the well for the first time saying, hey, this is your sin. Whoa, well, you must be a prophet. Maybe, don't, it's not in here, so this is my brain churning. Maybe all of these things are shame. Maybe the culture itself is leading to shame. A Samaritan and Jews, who's right, who's wrong, who's good, who's right, name-calling, fighting, bickering, cultural division. There's shame in that. Maybe the religion, now I got to go there. Maybe the religion. You're wrong, you're condemned, you're a sinner. You do this wrong, you do that wrong, I got to do this better, I got to do this, I didn't read my Bible long enough today, I didn't pray long enough today. There's shame in that. And obviously our sin when we know inside that we're falling short. But Jesus came to remove that shame so that we can be satisfied on the inside, that we could be washed in living water. But you say, how is this all about authentic worship? We haven't even gotten into that yet. Don't worry, it's coming. But to have authentic worship, we must be able to break cultural hindrances in our lives. We have to be able to throw off the shame and bondage that comes through culture. We have to, if we want authentic worship in our lives, we must go beyond the shortcomings of mere religion. To have authentic worship in our lives, we must address the sin that is entangling us in our lives. Because to have authentic worship, we must have connection to God Himself. Let's pick up verse 21. Jesus says to her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such worship. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. Jesus flips the script again and says it's not about this mountain. It's not about where or who or where you're from or this background or this thing. It's about true, real, authentic worship. When her religion has missed the mark and the culture has set up all these walls and barriers, true worship is possible. Authentic worship is possible. I find it funny that she didn't even know she needed living water, let alone worship reform. That she needed her beliefs overhauled. But in fact, that is exactly what she needed. She needed a true connection to living water. She needed worship that was more than just an exercise in futility. She needed more than just coming and drawing again and again. When our worship is more than a religious excuse to sing, attend a service, fulfill an obligation, check it off our list, and we're willing to have deep and intimate connection and relationship with Jesus, that will transform our lives and our worship. Because that's what authentic worship is all about. I'd like to read for you a couple segments of a commentary about this passage from Charles Spurgeon. It says, "Woman, believe me that the question is of no importance now. For the hour comes, yes, and now is, when the external is to be abolished, the ritualistic is to be put away, and a purer, simpler, and more spiritual worship is to take place. The worship which our Lord Jesus Christ established involved a change. The hour was just then and is come when all questions about this place must cease. This place or that place. That conversation is to be superseded by spiritual worship. Our Lord gave us a very brief and a very instructive description of what worship was to be. If you observe the words carefully, you will see that it is distinguishing a kind of worship. Merely outward worshipers are now false worshipers. And only those who pressed into spiritual worship were to be regarded as true." Wow. Is our worship real? Is it authentic? Is it true worship? Because this says to me, it doesn't matter if it's on this mountain or that mountain. It doesn't matter the method, the background, the person. It matters that we know what or who we worship. Jesus said, "You don't know what you worship." We know what we worship. We have to know, and the only way to know is to have a relationship with the one that we worship. An intimate connection. That we would worship with our spirit, connecting to God's Holy Spirit. That we would worship in truth, that our worship and our lives would align our lives with God's Word. And worship will be more than a method and a practice, but a lifestyle that brings Jesus to the world. As I said, next week we'll break down this section about worshiping in spirit and truth a little further. But I want us to see that God is calling us to an authentic worship that is in connection to Him, and that we are walking and aligned in truth. But before we close, there's more to the story. And I would be remiss if I didn't finish out this section. In verse 25 it says, "The woman said to him, I know the Messiah is coming, who is called the Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things." Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." At that point, the disciples came, and they marveled that he even talked with the woman. Yet no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" The woman left her water pot, went away into the city and said to the man, 'Come and see a man who told me all of the things I ever did. Could this be the Christ?' Then they went out of the city and came to him." Jesus flips the script. Here she is, coming to the well, looking for water, and she leaves without her water pot. She doesn't even take it with her. Because she has a revelation of who Jesus is, an encounter of who Jesus is, and what true, authentic worship can be. And so she leaves. And guess where she goes? To tell all the men about this guy. Guess what men she went to talk to? She didn't go to Jews. She went to her city, talked to Samaritans, told Samaritans about this guy named Jesus. She gave her testimony. She had an experience with Jesus, and she left with a testimony. She went and shared, and we see even later on in chapter 4, verse 39, it says, "Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did." Her testimony changed the entire region. You notice in that first half, in verse 25 there, the disciples didn't even ask him. They didn't say, "Why are you talking with her?" Just like they didn't ask, "Why are you even going to Samaria?" This trip was no inconvenient detour. This was on purpose. Jesus flipped the script on a whole region by going to a place he shouldn't go and talking to a woman he shouldn't talk to and changing the narrative on the whole region. And many of them believed in Jesus because of that moment. Wow. Jesus flipped the script. And it teaches us what the power of authentic worship truly is. It can change us, and it can change everyone around us. When our lives connect to the Spirit of God and live in the truth of God, and we have true intimate connection with God, it will transform us and everyone around us. When we have an authentic experience with God, and we truly have the living water inside of us, it can overflow, spring up to life in us, and overflow into others. That's the power of authentic worship. So my question to you this morning is, do you thirst for that living water? Do you thirst in this way? Do we thirst and long for intimate and authentic experience with Jesus? Do we want to be filled with living water that breaks down cultural hindrances, that goes beyond man's religion, which separates us and purifies us and washes us from our sins, and ultimately springs up to life in us an eternal satisfaction for our thirst? Do we long for true, authentic worship that changes our lives and changes those around us?